Hey everyone, welcome back to InfoGamer. In this video, we're going to keep working on our snake game. Now, in our last snake tutorial, we showed you how to make it so that when your snake runs into itself, it creates a game over, which reverts back to the main menu screen. So in this video, we are going to show you how to create the main menu and do other things in the UI of your game to make it more user-friendly. So in our last video, we created a main menu screen or level, and we added our snake title, but we want to make it look a little bit better. So one thing that you can do, if you're ever looking for fonts, there's a really great website called Squirrel, and you can get free to use fonts from this website, they have a lot of really good ones. So one way to find a good font for our snake game, let's search Pixel. And it'll come up with different or olden day video game styled fonts. And so I think this one looks pretty good, and it says download TTF. So let's click on that. And then let's go to our snake game folder where we can then save this font. So find it real quick. And so you can go ahead and save it into a new folder and call it fonts. And then we'll open that up and we'll save it there. Then it's really important that you open it, because most of the time when you download a font from this website, it'll be zipped. And so we'll go to show in folder, and we'll just right click and then click extract all and extract. And then it comes up with these. And I think this is the exact same font that I used when I did my own snake game previously. And so let's go back to Unity, and you'll see that we now have our font folder, and we can actually delete the zip file unless you want to save it. You could save it into like a folder outside your game and keep all your fonts that you use for different games in that folder, and that way you don't have to like go back to the website and download it if you know which font you're looking for. So let's open that up, and then I think any of these should work, but let's click on our canvas and then our title, and then you'll want to let's just click on the first one and drag it into the font field. And you can see that it changed our title to be all pixelated and cool. So now let's center it, make it look good. So I'm going to scroll out in my scene view, make it a little bigger, and so I can see my snake, and right now it's taking up the full screen. And so let's just change the anchors of our title so that it fits more in the right location. So you want it kind of close to the top, but not all the way to the top. So I think 15 from the top, and let's do 75 from the bottom. And then I have 10. We can actually also do this in our inspector. So let's change this to 0.75. And then this one, let's see, min x. Let's do 0.1. And then max x, let's do 0.9. And this, let's do 0.9. And then we'll zero out the transform. And let's make it so that it's best fit, and you can change up the max size to be like 200. And we'll make sure that it's center and center in the alignment. So now that we have our title, let's go ahead and create a button for our play. So let's right click on the canvas, go to UI, and then button, and we can change the anchor for our button. I'm going to scroll in so I can grab that anchor, and then I'm going to drag it out so that it's underneath our snake, let's change these, let's say 0.15, and then that would be 0.85. Oops, no. Let's do, so the other one was 0.75, so let's do 0.6, and then this will be 0.85, and then that will be 0.7. Let's zero it out. And then it's important to go to your text underneath the button, and we're going to change the text to say play, and we want to make this best fit, and it's already center in alignment, but we can change up the max size. Let's say 150, and let's change the font to be the same font, and let's change the color to be white so it matches. And now what we need to do is change the image color for our button to be transparent on the alpha. That makes it so that it'll be clickable, but we won't have the image of the button, which doesn't really fit the style of our UI. So now it's also important that you change the color of the alpha and that you don't uncheck the image component of the button, because if you uncheck the image component, then you won't be able to click the button, because the image uses this raycast target to detect whether or not the button's been clicked. And so it's important to have this component enabled. Let's stop right here and go create some new scripts for our main menu. So we'll go to our scripts folder and we'll create a new C# script. And I'll just call this main menu controller. And let's open it up in Visual Studios. So the first thing that we want to do is add our scene manager namespace. So we'll type using, and then it's Unity Engine, not Unity Editor, dot scene management. And now with that, we can create a new public function for our play button. So we'll type public, and then we'll call it play. And there's no parameter, whoops, not player prefab, just public play. And let's have no parameters. Inside here, we're going to go scene manager dot load scene, and we'll give it 1 for the parameter. This will load our game scene, and we forgot to have a return type, so it's just going to be a void. That'll make it a function that gets rid of our error. And let's go ahead and save that and go back to Unity, and then let's click on our button, and we can actually rename it to be play button. Play button. And now we scroll down to the button component, and on the on click field we're going to click this plus sign, and then we need to create a new empty game object to hold our main menu controller. So we'll then click on our main menu controller script and drag it on to this empty game object, and we're going to rename it to main menu controller. Once you do that, let's go back to our play button and drag our main menu controller into this field here on the on click, and then on the functions drop down menu we'll go to main menu controller and play. Let's add 2 more text objects to our canvas. So I'm going to actually just copy my title, and so we'll say duplicate, and then I'm going to change this to high score, and let's focus in on it, and I'm going to drag down the anchors. Let's see, probably about 45. We'll drag those down to the top, anchor down to 45 from the top. And then let's center the transform. And let's make the max size be just 100. And let's change the text to be high score, high space score. Sometimes when you're messing around with your UI and your canvas, your text will glitch out in the scene view and possibly the game view, just like that. But it should return to normal just after time. You can also click and readjust the size of your game view, and that should fix it. But now let's copy our high score text object, duplicate it, and let's rename this high score, or let's say, we'll type HS value. So high score value. And this is going to be a number value, so we can change it to just 0 for now, but let's reposition it on our canvas. So I'm going to drag that down to, let's say, 35. And we'll drag the top anchor down to, let's have it be 10 high, 10% high. So right there. Actually, just drag it to the bottom of our other text, and we'll drag that up because that wasn't actually 35. And we can fix the actual values in the inspector, so 0.35, and this should be 0.45. And now let's center the transform. And what we can do is leave it the same, best fit with 100 on the max size. Now let's go back to our script, and we're going to write a little bit of code that's going to update our high score dependent on what the high score actually is. So let's click on that, and we need to add a new namespace for the Unity UI. So using Unity engine.ui, and then let's create a function that will go in our start function, but let's make it void, and we'll call it high score. I'm just going to put HS, and we'll call it function parentheses with no parameters. And what we need to do is create a variable to hold our high score text object. So let's type public and then text for the UI text element, and then let's call this just h, small h, big S, so high score. And now we can take that variable and set it equal to, or the text component of the text object equal to the player preference of our high score, which we haven't actually made yet. But let's type hs, oops, not js, hs dot text equals, and then player preference dot get int, because their score is never going to be a float value. It's always going to be a hard integer, because when they pick up one food, it increments their score by 1, not 0.5 or 0.25 or anything like that. So get int, and then all we need to do is give it the string name of what the player preference variable is going to be. So let's type just high score, and then leave it with a semicolon. And we're getting an error because we're putting an integer value into a text field which is looking for a string. And so the way to fix this error is to say .toString, and I believe it's a function. So yep, all our errors went away. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's go back to Unity and click on our main menu controller, and you'll see that we have our high score variable in the inspector, and all we need to do is click on our high score value and drag that into the high score field. Now let's save this and give it a try. So let's hit play, and when we hit play on our game, it should load our game scene. So hit play, and there we go. We're now playing our game. Now the last thing that we want to do is create a UI for the players when they're actually playing the game. So let's load our game scene and let's create a UI. So first thing to do is let's create a text element for our score. We can rename it to score, and let's anchor it to all sides, and I'm gonna drag the bottom anchor up to the top just so it's at the very top. It can take up, let's say, 8% of the top, and let's center the transform. And now let's do the same things that we did to the other. Let's make it best fit, and we'll just make it 50. That's a little big, but it's okay. And let's change the color to white and drag in our font, which is here. You could have a label for this, for your score, that says score, and then have the score after the label. But for this example, I'm just going to have the number value of their score without any labels. And so I'm going to change the text to 0. And in our version of the game, we created a little dividing bar that went across the bottom of the score. And so let's go ahead and do that. To do this, you can click on your score text and then go UI and then image, and it gives us this white box. And so let's just change the anchors to all sides of our text object, and let's drag the top anchor down to close to the bottom of our other anchors, our bottom anchors. And then let's center the transform, and there we have a little dividing bar that goes across the top of our screen. Now let's create a button for players that want to exit the game for whatever reason. Maybe they want to change the speed setting or something like that. So let's create a new button on the canvas. So UI button, and let's scroll out and then change the anchors to all sides, all corners, and then we'll drag the top down to, let's say 10, no, 8. We have 8 on the top, let's do 8% on the bottom. Let's drag our left anchors to 50% in the middle of our screen. Now let's center the transform, and let's change the color of the background for our button to transparent in the alpha. And let's go to our text component. We'll make it best fit, change the color to white, and drag in our font. And then let's type exit. And then let's make that same dividing bar go across the bottom of our screen. So I'm actually going to duplicate that bar. And let's drag it off the score. And you could rename it to whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it at image. And then let's change the anchors to be at the top of our exit button, and then just drag it up a little bit so it's kind of the same width as our other divider. Let's change the transform, and it's a little thick, but that's okay, I guess. Now let's open up our game controller script and add some code that will keep track of our score. Now up at the top, we need to add the same namespace, so using Unity engine.ui, and let's create a score text variable. So text, and then we'll call it score text. we'll call it, yeah, score text. Because we already have a score variable, now we need a score text variable. So we already have our score variable updating every time our snake runs into a food object. And so all we need to do is find where that score is updating. And so I'm going to use the Control F find function of Visual Studios, and I'm going to type score plus plus, because I remember that that is how we were updating our score or incrementing our score. And so right here, I'm going to add a new line of code that says score text dot text equals score, not text, but just score, and then dot toString. And I don't think we update it anywhere else, but just to double check, I'm going to click on the next arrow, and looks like that's the only instance of us incrementing our score. So that's good to go. Now all we need to do is update our high score player preference variable if it needs to be updated. And so the best way to do this is in this same if statement. And we're going to first create a new temp integer variable, and we're going to set it equal to the player preference dot get int, and we'll give it the same name, so high score. I think it was spelled like this with same capitals. Just to double check, I'll go back to the main menu controller, because this is really important to make sure that you get the exact same string name for the variable that you want. And to be even safer, I'm going to just copy the value, the high score value, into the same place. Once you have that saved into a temp variable, we're going to check to see if the current score is greater than the temp variable or our high score, and if it is, then we are going to update our high score with a new value. So to do this, I'm going to say if score is greater than temp, then we say player preference dot set int, and we give it the same name, and then the second parameter is our score variable. Once we have that, we can go ahead and save it. Let's go back to Unity and connect everything, and then we'll test it out and make sure it's working correctly. So go back to Unity, and we need to click on our game controller script, and you'll see that we have our score text. And so we need to click on our score text object and drag that into our score text field. It'll get the text component, and then we need to assign our exit button with the exit function that we created in our last video. So we'll click on our exit button. I'm actually going to rename it to exit button. And then we're going to do the same thing where we scroll down to our onClick function and we click the plus sign. We drag in our game controller script, and then we go to game controller exit because we made it a public function. And so now let's go ahead and hit play. But first I'm going to save this scene, and then I'm going to load up our main menu scene and play from there. And so right now our high score is set to 0 because we haven't played our game since we added the new code that sets our high score. And so let's hit play, and then we'll go and eat some food. I'll speed this part up if needed. Okay, so I've caught 3 food, and let's go ahead and run into ourselves. And right now it says that our high score is 0. Let's hit play, and something's not working. Let's see. Oh, I always do this. Let's go back to our main menu controller, and in our start function, let's call our HS function. Now, it should, as we go back and hit play, it displays our high score as 3, because that's how many we caught. And if we hit play again and we run into ourselves, 3 is still the high score. And if we hit play and we catch 4 food, I'll speed this part up again. So I caught 4 food, and if I run into myself, our high score is now 4. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to create your main menu and your UI for your game. One more thing that we need to test is if we hit play and then click the exit button, does it go back? And it does. So that's working too. Now, make sure that you like and subscribe and share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.